Hello everybody, welcome to Macro Talk 2. How's everybody doing today? First thing, can you hear me? If you can hear me and see me, give me a thumbs up. I don't want to belabor the point, but after the last couple of times, I'd rather be safe than sorry. All right. I've got questions rolling in already. Great. Loud and clear from Ploddles. Okay, fantastic. Okay, so we'll get started right away. This is Macro Talk 2, and we are going to kind of set the stage for the way we're going to do things going forward. I'm going to try to keep the first half hour to the area of interest that I'm going to be presenting this month or that month, whatever month we're in. In this case, I don't have the video out yet, so we're just going to be talking about short focus, what it is, how we use it, the drawbacks and the value of this technique in extreme macro photography. But also in the first half, I want to tell you anything that I need to tell you, show you something or whatever. And then in the second half, it's just open for you to ask your questions. So that's the way we're going to do it. And let me start out, first of all, by answering a question that came at the end last time, and I didn't get a chance to answer it. And now I've lost the question. Nils was asking me, what printer paper do I use for large prints and very large prints? Great question. I use Canon paper mostly that I print myself on my Canon printer. I use Canon Pro Luster, is my favorite paper to use for most of the stuff that I make and frame. When I make small prints, which is very rarely, I will sometimes use the Pro Platinum, which is a gloss paper. When I make very special prints, I will use probably the Epson Ultra Premium luster paper. I'm not quite sure what it's called, or one of the Canson Infinity Baryta type textured papers. But that's usually when I'm having a lab print it. When I'm printing it myself, I usually stick to the Canon papers. They just have been really the most reliable for me. So that's the answer, Nils. It's nothing fancy, I'm afraid. If I could afford to use some of these really fancy papers, I would, because I think they're beautiful. They look fantastic, but yeah, they're expensive, and I'm not that good a printer or a photographer for that matter. So there you go. Let me see. What was the next thing I wanted to tell you about? This thing is for everybody, by the way. The meetings that we do during the week, the live streams, Tuesday and Thursday, they're for anybody who's interested in macro. You can come by, you can ask questions, you can learn from whatever we talk about. Great stuff. It's different than what I do at the weekends with the Zoom meetings that we have. That's a thing that I do for my Patreon supporters. And if you have ever thought about maybe wanting to be a Patreon supporter, which is something that we should all aspire to, right? Then now might be a good time to consider joining up. This weekend, we have a 2-hour per Zoom, is what I call them, for want of a better word. But we'll be getting together with the Patreon viewers who want to, and it'll be a back and forth chat. But we've got a guest this weekend, Graham Carey, who won the competition, the photo competition last month for his breathtaking photograph of a ballpoint pen. Do you want to see it? Has anybody not seen it? I'm going to show it to you anyway. Hang on. Let me see if I can. It's always hard for me to do this without somehow jiggering up my my other window that's got my YouTube in it. I'm watching YouTube while I'm doing this. I'm going to share my screen again so that you can see this. This is my website I'm getting ready to show you. Am showing you, I should say. So this is my website, and this is the home page, and I can't seem to get it to get bigger. There we are. And I'm going to show you what you will see on the home page. It's that. It's Black Bic Biro Ball by Graham Carey. Fantastic photograph. And he's going to be my guest, or he is going to be one of the guests on Saturday at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, our time, Central time. Graham will be coming on to discuss his new rig, which is really groundbreaking. He's doing some stuff that nobody else is doing, frankly. He has designed a frictionless, vertical, vibration-free system that allows you to do high-speed macro photography stacking in continuous light. It's mind-blowing, and it's beautiful, and it's elegant, and it works. So if you are interested in maybe doing something like that yourself, and you want to know how it is done, you need to come. You need to come on Saturday and ask him questions. He'll probably answer them, and that's the kind of thing we do on Saturdays. If you want to be part of that, you're more than welcome. All you have to do is pay a tiny little bit of my salary, which is already tiny. So it's not much. It's not much. I'm going to show you another thing. This is kind of a balance to Graham's incredible DIY. This is my DIY, which is much less impressive, to be honest. But here it is anyway. Somebody asked me at the last live stream if I would show the positioning system that I've been working on. Well, this is it. It is, like I say, it's nothing to write home about. And all I've finished so far programming is the y-axis, the up and down part. This is just a remote positioning system that I'll be using on my rig to move around subjects for stacking and stitching, and also just for hands-free movement of the subject. It's all kind of thrown together, but I just wanted you to see the thing working so that you know that I can make these things work. Next time, it makes a terrible noise. I'm going to have to figure out how to run these motors without making such an atrocious noise. Anyway, let me see. I am okay. I was just getting a phone call from one of my Patreon supporters, and that usually means there's a problem with my stream, not my personal stream. I mean, if I'm doing a presentation and somebody calls me, it's to say we don't have any sound. So I'm just making sure that nobody's saying you don't have any sound. No, nobody's saying that. Okay, so great. So I think that was everything that I had. I wanted to tell you about the video that's coming up. I am in the process of doing a video on short focus, and I am comparing a short focused Mitutoyo 5X objective, short focused like this. This is a short focus Mitutoyo 5X objective with a DCR 250 instead of the DCR 150. And I am going to compare this, which is an incredibly sharp system, with my other favorite 3X, which is the enlarger lens, the EL Nikkor 50mm enlarger lens, the f2.8N. So what we're going to talk about today is this rig and what it is, why it works, how you do it, what's the point, and so on. But the video that will be coming out shortly thereafter is going to be everything you need to know about it. Be just like my other videos, full of facts and useful information about it. But I'm also going to do something else. I'm going to compare the Mitutoyo 20x pushed down to 10x against the CFI Plan 10x, the Nikon objective. These are all common objectives that we use, so I thought you might be interested to know that if you buy a DCR 250 to do some short focus stuff with Mitutoyos, what other objectives would they be good with? So that's what we're going to do. That's coming up. I'm in the process of getting that shot right now. So today we're talking about short focus, and if you ask me questions about short focus, then they will probably get answered first. But I am going to have a quick look to see what we've got and then run through a few of these very quickly. While I'm reading, I'll tell you what short focus is. Short focus is where you push the magnification of an objective lower by using a relay lens or a tube lens of a shorter focal length. That's it, really. And by virtue of the fact that you are pushing down the magnification, you end up with an appearance of greater resolution of the image. It just stands to reason that if at 5x you're maximally resolving with this lens, and then you shrink the picture down, it's going to get even sharper. Just like if you blow up the 3x image with the Nikkor, it'll get softer as you come up to the 5x. So the short focus technique is a great way to get more out of your objectives in terms of sharpness without having to go to high resolution lenses. The trade-off is you don't get as much magnification. And how big of a deal is that? Well, it's not a big deal at all. So let me show you a picture or two. Shall I do that? I think I will. This is just a couple of examples. This is a long-legged fly that I shot yesterday with a Mitutoyo 5x pushed down to 3x using the DCR 250 diopter from Raynox. And I will tell you that this is about as sharp as these lenses are going to get, in my hands anyway. Here's another example. This is a little guy, a little weevil that I shot. Picture's no good, but it was the fungus, the mold on him that caught my attention. This is a close-up, a crop of that area. My goodness, it's kind of bopping around there. These are the hyphae. I challenge you to find a photograph of these mold hyphae that are more defined than that. And this was at 3x using this push down 5x objective. This is the same weevil with the same mold growing in his armpit, and you can see the same kind of detail. So this is really spectacular. There was one other picture that I took, but it's still in Photoshop. That's what it is. So I'll have to open Photoshop to show it to you. And it is a clown weevil. This is a clown weevil that's famous because it's traveled to 2 states. This clown weevil went to Georgia and then came back to me from there. And yeah, I photographed him again. So this is an old friend of mine, and yeah, I'll let the picture speak for itself. That's I haven't done anything to this yet. Haven't cleaned it up. This is at 3x. This is the 5x pushed down to 3x with a DCR 250. Okay, so that's what we're talking about. Now, while you devise your question, I'm going to look at your already up there questions. I think I just minimized the wrong screen. Uh-oh. Hang on a second, chaps. No, I'm still there. I'm still there on the screen. Thank goodness. One of these days, I'm just going to accidentally turn myself off while I'm doing this. Okay, so let me go to the questions, and going to go as quick as possible. Ploddles asked one before we got started, and that was, what are the advantages to storing insects in isopropyl alcohol or rubbing alcohol as opposed to ethanol? Ethanol is going to keep your bugs more natural looking. For me, it does. It's less likely to leach out the color as ethanol. No, sorry, the ethanol is less likely to leach out the color than the isopropyl alcohol. It's worse at 90% than it is at 70. It also, I think, preserves the tissue better. Isopropyl alcohol seems to make the muscle tissue inside the appendages of insects get really tough and leathery, and it can make relaxing them a bit harder. Ethanol seems to, I don't know what it does exactly, but when you replace the ethanol with water, the limbs, appendages are able to stretch a little easier and stay in position. So they're the two reasons I use it. It's more expensive as well. That's another drawback. And then there's a positive, is you can always drink it if it hasn't been, well, I guess even if it has been soaking insects. There's always that. You couldn't do that with isopropyl alcohol. So I guess it depends on your tastes. All right, Patrick is from Eindhoven, where it's apparently snow white, and none of my chemical product links work. Well, that's no good. It's probably because you're from the Netherlands. Yeah, I don't know. Let me check. I did a thing where I put together a list of all the chemicals that I use in macro photography for everything, for relaxing, cleaning, surfactants, and all kinds of things. And I listed them all, told you where you could buy them, how to use them, and so on. And I think I put it in I put it in Discord last week. But apparently the links are no good in the Netherlands. I'll look into it, Patrick, and yeah, I might try to do a European version of it. Yeah, that might be the fix. Demetrius, welcome. And Nils, were you here in time to hear me answer your question from last week? I hope so. Robert, listening undercover at work on Bluetooth. Okay, what's your boss's name? I'll clue him in and he'll come shut your Bluetooth down. Art, welcome. Yeah, you were here early as well. Lance, good to see you from the UK. Ploddles, chatting with Robert. David, greetings. Robert, greetings. And let me see, Graham, Carrie's here. Well, Graham, I couldn't open up the pictures you sent me. It just denied me. I guess it did a background check or something and thought I was unsavory and it wouldn't let me do the thing. So I haven't had a chance to look at them, but I'm very excited about Saturday. So I just announced the fact that you're coming on Saturday to the Pazoom at 2 o'clock in the afternoon our time, and I know that everybody's super excited. In fact, be on the lookout for an email. I'm going to be sending you an email this evening. There's something I need to talk to you about. So there you go, there is that. And oh good, you got the, yes, Graham also won a Nikkor, L Nikkor enlarger lens, the 50mm f2.8, which was made possible, which was given to him by Robert Wester, who excuse me, my phone is ringing with another Patreon viewer. So there's clearly something wrong with my image today, and I don't know what it is, but I'm not going to stop to find out. Yeah, we were talking about the lens. So Graham got the enlarger lens, and hopefully it's working out. I hope so. It's a great lens, and I made him a lens hood. Now, Robert Wester was the man who donated this prize, and he has donated multiple prizes that will be available for you to win if you enter the competition. Something I didn't get to mention yet, but I will now. We are going to handicap the competition from this day forward, and I'm going to go back 6 months to set the baseline handicaps. It seems only fair, otherwise it'll take 6 months to ramp up. If you get an honorable mention, you get 1 point. If you get a third place, you get 2 points. If you get a second place, you get 3 points. And if you get a win, you get 5 points. Your points will be added up and averaged over the last 12 months. So whatever you had January a year ago will come off at the beginning of February, this February. So it'll be the last 12 months, the average of your score. The better you do, the higher your score, and the harder it'll be to win. Meaning that everybody who hasn't won, hasn't placed, hasn't had an honorable mention, will find it easier to compete against you. I'm hoping it'll level the playing field. It's not as punitive as it sounds, because I use a score of 100, a maximum possible score of 100 to judge the images, and 85 is usually what wins. So there's a this will be a significant handicap, but it won't be unfair, I don't think. All right, so that's that. Got that covered. Has everybody got their mineral pictures ready to go? Have you taken them to the robots at www.macrocontest.com? You haven't? Okay, well, I'll send the robots to you if you don't. So go over there and do that. They're waiting for you. Let me see. Questions. Hey, Susan, glad you're here. And Gilles from Quebec, welcome. Okay, so that was me actually who asked myself a question from earlier, and I'm not going to answer it. So we'll just skip over that. Let me see. Hernando is down in Florida, welcome. And a question from Gilles. How do you calculate magnification to determine if the subject is 3x or 3.5x, etc.? Well, to be honest, I don't calculate magnification. I know what the nominal calculation of, let me put this other view on, and we'll talk about this while I've got it handy. So we know that in this rig, I'm using a 5x objective, and I am short focusing it, meaning I am using a shorter focal length relay lens. In this case, it's about 100 millimeters instead of 200 millimeters. In fact, it's a little more than that. But the key is this. When you use this, you aren't going to use it necessarily at 100 millimeters. You're going to use it wherever it focuses on infinity. So what I did was I put the Raynox on, and you'll notice that it's forward oriented. It's not backwards like we normally do. And then I will take everything else off, specifically the objective, but I will take this outside and I will focus on something in the far distance using the bellows. So when I get finished, the bellows will be, as it is the case here on my full frame camera, 124 millimeters from the sensor to the back of the back of the relay lens. Now that might be different for you. It wasn't for Bud, for example, who got exactly the same 124 millimeters. So when you do that, your question, Gilles, is how do you calculate what the magnification is going to be with that setup? I don't calculate it, I measure it. That's what I do. I'll take the whole assembly as it is, I'll put it over on my stage. I will focus by moving the entire thing on the rail. So I'll loosen the bottom of the bellows, Did I? I think so. Yes, there we are. And then I will move the whole thing back and forth, not changing the distance between the sensor and the relay lens until I am in sharp focus at the closest point of whatever I'm looking at. And then I will put a ruler there, a plastic ruler, and I'll count the number of millimeters. And with this rig, it's exactly 8 millimeters on an APS-C camera. That is on a 24 millimeter sensor, 24 millimeters wide. So if the thing's 24 millimeters wide, I can only see 8 millimeters. That is right at 3:1, and that's how you do it. So it's not really a calculation, it's a measurement. And that is the easiest way to do it. You could have predicted that that's what it was going to be by doing the calculations, and just use any calculator to do that. But I don't see the point in doing that. You know it's going to be about 3, and you can measure it. I hope that answers the question. Let me see. Mike from Phoenix. I was just talking to somebody in Phoenix not even 5 minutes ago. Small world. And Harold from Norway. Yeah, it's snowing everywhere over there, isn't it? I'll beat. Ingolf Kuntz made it. Welcome, Ingolf. Glad you're with us today. And Tom, good. No problems. We had I'm just plagued with these technical problems. It's not actually a plague. It's just me pressing the wrong buttons. But we did. The latest misadventure was my live stream on Tuesday. I had somehow scheduled a second live stream, which was going on with nobody in it. I mean, I wasn't there because I was on the live stream. And I don't know how it could possibly have happened, because you have to set up a live stream. It takes 20 minutes. And it's like going into the kitchen to get a cup of coffee and accidentally making a wedding cake while you're in there. That's what it feels like to accidentally set up a live stream. But I did somehow. And yeah, so people were over there twiddling their thumbs waiting for me to show up. And I was on the live stream that I had set up talking to people. And I was afraid I was going to do that again today, but apparently not. That's good. Ralph, welcome. And let me see. Macro, everything around you got off early. Good for you. Good for you. Glad you made it. Curious, welcome. I hope you've seen an uptick in your traffic, because I've been forcing people to come over there and sign up and be a subscriber and join your Patreon thing. Curious is an engineer, and he's a genius, and he understands electricity, and he's probably laughing his elbow off after looking at my machine here if he saw it. And I don't blame him. I would be too. But he's the man to talk to if you're trying to build something and you don't know how to do it. If it involves electricity, he'll know. So go to his channel, check it out. Curious Scientist, that's the name of the channel. It's also his name, which is an unbelievable coincidence. That hardly ever happens. Well, it happened with mine too, didn't it? Yeah, it did. It did. Same difference. Okay, let me see. Laura G. Welcome, Laura G. You gave me a cold while you were down here. I mean, I'm not making a big deal about it or anything, but yes, thank you. Sorry about that. John, welcome. And Ulrich from Pretoria, South Carolina. South Carolina, South Africa. We haven't had a South African join us before. Ulrich, welcome. Let me see. Gosh, there's so many people. Eric, south of France. Snowing hard in the south of France. Are you sure you're not in the Alps? Unbelievable. Yeah, definitely. Everybody's looking forward to this presentation on Saturday, Graham. You should be very nervous. Very nervous. Earplugs. What's I'm missing the point with the earplugs. Can't wait to hear what that's about. All right, here's a question. Thanks for being live again for us Europeans. Yes, I thought that it would be less interesting if I were dead. So we'll just stick with live. And you're looking forward to the comparison. I think it's going to be an important comparison for me, because I'll tell you, I'd tell anybody this. If I could only have one lens, it would be the EL Nikkor 50mm f2.8N. It is so versatile, it is so sharp, it is so flat, it is just the perfect extreme macro lens for me. This may just about change that. We'll have to see. But I have been blown away by how sharp this is. All right, question. Wouldn't you be adding chromatic aberration with the inexpensive 250 versus an ITL 200? No, you wouldn't, because first of all, you couldn't add an ITL 200 because that's a 200mm focal length lens, and you would still be at 5 times on your magnification. The whole point of this is that using the shorter focal length lens as a relay lens, you're taking the infinity flux of light and you're focusing it at a shorter distance because of the 120mm focal length of the DCR 250. So you could theoretically use any shorter lens, but that doesn't work. It needs to be a relay lens that couples well with that objective. Having said that, all of the Mitutoyo M plans will work for this, and so does the Nikon CFI plan 10x. Works beautifully as a 5x using this same technique. So it's a very versatile technique. But no, it doesn't add a chromatic aberration, because it's not doing anything to the objective. It's not changing the way the objective works. The corrections in the objective stay the same. All it's doing is allowing you to move the sensor closer because of the shorter focal length of the relay lens. No, it doesn't. In fact, when you see it, you'll see what I'm talking about. You cannot get full frame coverage. So you're probably wondering, why do I have a D850 on my rig? And well, you can't see it, so you're probably not wondering that, but now you can. This camera is too much camera for this rig, with the fact that at short focus you're going to vignette. But I was shooting a black background bug, and I was doing it for a comparison study, and I knew that you weren't going to see the vignette because it was a black background, so that's why I did it. But this really is something that you want to use an APS-C with. Okay, just mentioning. Alrighty, let's get back to the questions. Have you tried using the EL Nikkor with a close-up lens as well? Just for the sake of comparison, it would be interesting to see what that does. No, I have not. I will try it and see what happens. You mean, would I slap a DCR 150 on the front of a... Yeah, I could do that. What's it going to do? Yeah, I can't predict that. I'll try it. There's probably a reason that it's never been done, but we'll find out. I'll try it forward and reverse. If it's spectacular, I'll do a video on it. Otherwise, I'll just tell you next week. All right, let me see what's next. Harold's got a question. Do you have any experience with the stepping motor-driven focusing rack, the Castell Micro with microtube and Mitutoyo microscope lens from Novaflex? And if so, do you have any comments? What do you mean by experience? If you mean, do I know what it is? Have I examined the specs and pretty much studied the thing? Yes, I have. I know exactly what it is, and but if I've actually touched it or seen it, no, they won't let me touch those. They're too expensive. It is undoubtedly one of the nicest and best made pieces of photographic equipment. A number of my students use them, and a number of very good photographers they are as well. They are so out of my price range that I generally don't make recommendations for them, because I don't use the stuff and I've never used it, so I can't really recommend it, but it is gorgeous. It's European engineering, it's all handmade, and there's nothing bad about it except the exorbitant prices, and they are exorbitant. They sell the M-plan objectives and built-in relay lens. They don't actually tell you what the relay lens is. They put one in there in the tube part you're talking about. It's probably an ITL 200, I would guess. And then they sell the whole lot for a huge price. But their rail, their stepper itself, is really, really nice. It uses, I believe, a 0.9 degree high precision stepper motor. I will check with one of my regulars, who I may get to see this weekend during the Pazoom, because he often comes to those, and I'll ask him about that. But it's gorgeous. If you're thinking about buying it and you don't want to buy a yacht instead, then yeah, I would buy it. I would definitely buy it, or I tried to get them to lend me one just to give it a shot. No, I don't think they like people with beards, for one thing, but no, didn't get a crack at it. So yes, Harold, if you can afford it, buy it and lend it to me. John, question. You bought the 4X objective that I recommended. It has to be 160 millimeters away from the sensor. No. Is the flange focal distance the distance from the sensor to the front of the camera? Yes. So here's the deal. The flange focal distance is the flange of the camera. That is the metal ring right here, where whatever you're putting on your camera attaches back to the sensor. In DSLRs, it's 45 or so millimeters. In mirrorless cameras, it's only about 20 millimeters. The flange focal distance is very short, and you just need to figure that into your total distance, but it's not 160. The objective says 160 on it. That is the tube length, including the eyepiece. So when you're using a finite objective that doesn't have a relay lens, you don't have, I switched the camera and then I held the camera up in front of the wrong camera. Are you confused? I was confused. I won't do that again. I was holding this up in front of the camera that wasn't turned on. The flange focal distance is from the flange of the camera, where it joins whatever your lens assembly is back to the sensor. And that needs to be included in that length that you measure, but it's not 160, it's 150 millimeters, because you don't have an eyepiece in this setup. Because of the fact that they're including the eyepiece in that 160, you need to take that 10 millimeters out. So it's 150 from the back of the knurling on the objective. Let me see if I can find a picture of the objective, and I'll show you the line where you do the measurement to. The measurement is more important in this than it is in a lot of the stuff we do, because it really is the sweet spot for the lens. It's the point at which it forms an image. And I do have actually a picture of this thing somewhere, and I will find it. Chat amongst yourselves. I'll get into doing this, and then I'll start showing you pictures, because it's so much fun, but I'll try not to do that. Here it is, cameras and gear. Okay, I'm gonna switch to the other. By the way, Jamie Walters. Jamie, thank you so much for sending me 2 computer monitors so that I can see all of these things at once. They arrived late last night, and I was going to try to set them up, but it's going to take a while because they're complicated. But I'm going to have enough territory to see all of the stuff that I need to see to do a live stream without seeming like a complete moron. But that will be no fun, will it? So what I'm doing is I'm looking for the objective so that I can show you where the line is. Most of you know where it is because you've messed with it before, but some of you might not. So I'll show you a picture of it. In fact, come over here to the computer and you can look at it with me. You ever seen that before? That's Chris Slaybor. He's one of the guys that does the moderating over on PMN, on photomacrography.net. And yeah, that was his first build. This was a build that inspired me to make the cage, actually. And yeah. So I'm looking for my, here it is. So this is the objective that we're talking about. This one on the left. The rear element of this lens is actually along that line. And that is where your measurement should start. It's 150 millimeters from this line back to your sensor. Fair enough? That's it. This is what we're going to be comparing to the short focused 20x Mitutoyo. I'll tell you what's going to win. Shall I? No, I'll keep it a secret. Okay, fair enough. So there you go. That's an old editing machine. Can you believe it? It's how they used to make movies, was by actually cutting film up into pieces. Seems like a very labor-intensive way of doing things. All right, let me get back to the questions, shall I? Question. I thought the standard focal length of a Raynox 250 is 125. Right, it is 125. And so, yeah, the actual magnification depends on whether or not you're using the lens in the forward or the reverse orientation, because they're not symmetrical. And it's seldom ever the physical separation is the same as the focal length. I mean, think of any lens that you have. It would be very unusual for a 100mm lens to actually be 100mm long from the sensor. So it's purely coincidence if that happens. But yeah, the DCR 250 is 125mm, which is why it gives you 3x instead of 5x. But yeah, so I think we're agreeing. I'm not sure what the question was. You are right. The focal length of the 250 is 125, and we're using it in the forward orientation, so that will be correct. Okay, Raynox 150 used at 144 standard 2. Okay, hang on. I'm going to have to read this question again. Eric thought the standard focal length of a Raynox 250 is 125. Half magnification and talking short focus, the Raynox 150 used at 144 usually, no, you're confusing the physical separation of the sensor and the relay lens with its focal length. That's not what you do. The focal length and the physical separation, the extension is what we call it, they're related by a complex formula that is not worth learning. You just measure, you just set it up by focusing it at infinity, because that's all it has to do. And remember, these lenses are asymmetric, so if it behaves in one way when it's forward, and then you flip it around the other way, it's going to behave often completely differently. So don't get hung up on a relationship between the focal length and the separation between the sensor and the lens, because they're really not related at all. That would be misleading. If you're looking for a way to and you wouldn't just halve the distance of a DCR 150 to turn it into a DCR 250. I mean, that is the native focal length of the lens. You can't change that. It's always going to be a focal length of 208 millimeters at the 150. Changing its position isn't going to change that. So you have to actually use a lower focal length lens as your relay lens in order to get this short focus effect. That's what short focus means. Does that help? I hope so. So did I cover that okay, John, as far as the flange focal distance and everything? The distance is the back of the knurling to the sensor, and it's 150. That's it. That's all you need to know. If the microscope objective requires a fixed specific distance, why not have a fixed specific extension tube made and forego all the combinations of step up, step down? Well, presumably because you have other rigs that you're going to want to use. I mean, I do. So yes, you absolutely could, and plenty of people do. And in fact, just the other week, I showed one of my viewers, whose name I've forgotten now, actually made one, 3D printed a single tube that you just put the objective on the end of. It was for an infinity corrected objective, but it was the same idea. You can do that. You can get one extension tube that is exactly the right distance for your camera, which would be the full separation, 150 minus the flange focal distance, so it would be about 100 millimeters. You could do that, but if you wanted to use another objective, you get a Lomo 5x objective, or any other of the Amscope ones that have a different tube length, or you get a different brand that uses a different convention for tube lengths, and suddenly it's no good anymore. Or if you try to use it with an objective that has a different thread. So I always say, just get a set of extension tubes, and you can mix and match them to get the distances you want. That's what I do. I've got enough bits and pieces to make tubes any length I want, and that is good for me because I'm always changing. Don't go changing. Lee, hey Lee, what's up? You're cold and in Wales. I still don't get the earplugs thing. Do I have earplugs in? No, it's my beard. So let me see. Where were we? All the way down at the bottom of this list, and that was David just asked that question. And the only microscope objectives that require, by the way, a fixed specific distance are the finite ones. The infinity corrected ones, they are going to usually require that distance, but it will change depending on your copy of the lens. The idea being, you want to measure your tube lens empirically. You want to take it outside and focus on infinity to decide how far it needs to be. All right, so I think we were down. Oh, my questions just all jumped in a bizarre way. So Nils, yes, you prefer the same for smaller prints. Good. And you're experimenting with A3 Plus. Okay. The Baryta's fantastic. The Photographique. It's insanely expensive over here. There are lots of papers that I like that just for special occasions, but this stuff I'll be right back. This stuff is what I like. This paper is absolutely fantastic. It's got a very subtle luster that just takes the edge off. It's not super reflective. Shall I get you a picture? I'll get you a picture. This is a dragonfly on that paper. And this is the worst possible way for me to show it to you because of all of these lights. But you can see it's got a nice softness to it. It's not a very nice soft picture though, is it? Yeah, and the price is reasonable. It's expensive, but reasonable. Okay. Hey, Walter, good afternoon. You were trying to call me. Was there something that I was doing wrong? Do tell if I was. Has my wig slipped again? All right, let me see. Right, we're down to photographer 85, and he's talking minerals. You want to shoot minerals, but they haven't arrived yet. This is a unique problem. Hope you don't close the competition before the weekend. It's January the 19th. I don't close the competition until midnight on the last day of the month. So, hang on a second, let me do the rhyme in my head. 31. There are 31 days this month, which means we have, hang on a second, 12 days left. And if your things are arriving tomorrow, do you take pictures very, very slowly? If it takes less than 11 days to take a picture, I'd say you've got all the time you need. Do it. And we'll cut you some slack if you're a day or so late. No, I won't. Actually, you'll be disqualified. The robots are in charge now. Mark from Bristol, welcome. Bond. Mark Bond. Get it? It's a joke. All right, Ploddles. Yeah, Ploddles knows. Ploddles knows. Well, I'll be danged. We're getting waves from Carlitos. Welcome, Carlos. Good to have you with us. All right, Tom's got a question. It's a further along from Gilles' question. Should we establish critical focus at infinity for the bare relay lens with the DC R150 or others? With any relay lens, yes. Now I'm going to do this right. I'm going to keep the camera pointing in the right direction. So when the light leaves the objective, heading in this direction, it is in a continuous flux. The light rays are essentially parallel to one another, and they'll keep going like that for a long time. When they hit the relay lens, in this case the DCR 250, is going to focus them on the sensor. That's its job. We don't know for sure where that point is unless we find it. And that's what I recommend that you do even for lenses that we know perfectly well that this one is going to focus on the sensor at 208 millimeters in reverse, the DCR 150 I'm talking about. Everybody's done it and they all get the same number. So that's great, but you should still try it yourself. You should still set it up. Just get in the practice of doing that every time you switch out an infinity corrected system and you're using a new tube lens. It takes 2 seconds. I don't even go outside anymore. I just turn it around on my stand and point it into my neighbor's boudoir and then focus it there, and you're done. That's it. Once you've done it, look at it, measure it, jot it down, and then you're good from there on. But check it. You may have the one DCR 150 that doesn't focus well until you get to 215 millimeters. So check it and see. So with no objective on, of course, just the relay lens. Okay, let me see, what else? So we got that one covered. Danielle is calling from Rio de Janeiro in Brasilia. Welcome, Daniel. We have our first Brazilian and our first South African in the same live stream. That's absolutely fantastic. So thrilled. Earplugs referred to cutting down the noise from my new contraption. Oh, that was hateful. It wasn't that bad, was it? Yes, it was. It's actually, I've got it on a loudspeaker box, and that was... Did I tell you I was inventing a bell? This is another invention that has a practical use in the coming up photo competition. I'm going to use it to identify when I'm talking about somebody that has become a contender because of their great photograph. And I discovered that if you take my bell, which is already really irritating the way it is, just at normal volume, and position it on an hollowed out loudspeaker, it gets worse. And then I've created an automatic hammer for it using a solenoid. So it is a steel bar that bangs into the bell every time I press a button. It's just terrible. And I'm going to hold everybody hostage with that bell until they join Patreon or something. Okay, just letting you know. So that's why it sounded bad. I should get back to the questions. Rio, I've always wanted to go there. Thomas, what about Nikon Z cameras for macro? Yeah, I mean, I have no doubt that that's where I will end up going. I'm afraid I don't even want to think about it, but the D850 won't last forever. And the D7500 that I'm using for everything else, my stacking camera, has already surpassed 4 lifetimes of shutter actuations and is still going. But one day it won't be. And yeah, and I'm going to need to go with a new camera. And gosh, the way things are going, they might not even make DSLRs anymore. So yes, I will be with you. I'll be standing in line to get a Z7 or something. Not thrilled about it. I still don't like I just can't get used to the technology. I'm too old, but yeah. But for macro, all a camera is a collection of bells and whistles that support a shutter in front of a sensor. That's it. They don't do anything else. You try to get one to wash your car. Useless. Doesn't do housework either. It just does that. It opens up the shutter and then closes it again and exposes your sensor. Has anybody noticed that my bookcase appears to be getting ready to fall over? You should have told me. Is that better? No, it's not. It must be a yeah. It's a geometry thing. Forget about it. I just noticed it and it looks really terrible. I'm going to have to move my computer up in the air. So yes, I will be with you on mirrorless. I have no choice. I've got a mirrorless camera, a Fuji. I don't like it. Can't get on with it. But there you go. My problem. So where were we? We were down to Bud. Question. Have I tried the 20x Mitutoyo with short focus? And does it give approximately 6? No. The 20x at short focus with the DCR 250 gives more like 12 times magnification. With you're going to use exactly the same distance because you set up the distance without the objective, and just putting the objective on the same setup will give you a little over 12x for the 20x short focus push down. And that is what I am going. Yes, I have tried it, and I'm going to be doing a video comparing it with the CFI Plan 10X. So yes and yes, and no on the distance, and no on the magnification. Bill asks, you need to change the camera you are using. Okay. I don't know why. Is there a problem with the camera? I can't see. I'll wipe it. I've got a wipe. Is that any better? Okay. So that was, what denatured ethanol do you use? 71% from the drugstore, whatever their brand is. I don't know what it is, but it's the 90% that they also sell is a little bit astringent. It overly dries the bugs to where they dry too quickly, and you have to replace the alcohol with water to dry them more slowly, and it's a pain. 71 you can actually dry from alcohol. That's why I use it. So let me see. I don't know what you mean about the camera, Bill. You need to tell me, because I don't have another camera. I don't think. It's this one on my computer. It's the only one I got. Yeah, now everybody's piling on about the noise my thing made. Yeah, it is noisy, but it won't be when it's finished, because it won't work when it's finished. But yeah, when I'm using it, it's not going to be going continuously. I was just doing that to show you, and I haven't put any dampers under the motor or anything like that. I just wanted you to see something moving. But when it's all finished, it won't be moving. It'll be holding my specimen, and it will move only when I twiddle the knobs. You'll see. All right. Let me see where we are. What? Oh, I'm sorry. The question was, what denatured ethanol do I use? I don't use denatured ethanol. I use grain spirits. What's it called? Everclear, or something like that. It's people drink it. Maybe that's just a local thing, but yeah, it's 95% alcohol, and it's not denatured. I don't use denatured spirits at all. But they put the bitterant that they put in them and the colors that they put in them. Like in the UK, I know that they use a methylated spirit, which is I kind of like a mixture of wood alcohol and something. That stuff's poisonous. But I don't like anything with the color in it, because that can tint the subject. So I don't use denatured. I just use straight alcohol that I buy it from the whiskey shop. They call them red dot stores here. I have no idea why, but that's where you'll buy it. It's about $15 for a bottle of a liter, I guess. All right, so more advice to change the camera. In order to calculate the magnification via focal length extension, you have to measure at which distance the lens focuses to infinity first. Then you can add the extension. Isn't that what I said, though? I mean, you are changing the extension in order to focus the in order to focus the relay lens. That's how you do it. You stretch out your bellows and compress your bellows until the relay lens is in focus at infinity, and that is then where you set, because it's already set. You've just set it there. Are we saying the same thing? Or am I just not understanding your point? I think we are. All right. Let me see. Quasimodo, the bell ringer. What is that about, I wonder, Art? You're not talking about me, I hope. Ray, yes, you had a question last week. You kept telling me I hadn't answered it, but I couldn't find it. I couldn't find it anywhere. So let's see if this is it. Question. Ray had a B in alcohol and it looked goose? Yeah, good, probably. Heinz and I took it out and rinsed it with water, and the eyes turned light beige after a little while. Okay. What's the question? How do you stop it from doing that? If the eyes turned beige, that is most likely the drying of the covering. There's a protein covering on the eye that will discolor as it dries if it hasn't been properly cleaned. And most of the time you can actually clean that off with soapy water and a paintbrush, ever so gently under the microscope. But if that doesn't work, I would be very quick to use a potent surfactant like Decon 90 to paint over the opacified parts of the eye. They will come back right away because the Decon 90 is a very, very powerful detergent, and it will surround all of the dirt and dust particles that are discoloring the lens, and it'll flush them off, it'll lift them off. So that's what I would do. If I had a bee that had come out of the alcohol and did not respond to a soap and water wash, the next thing I'd do would be Decon 90 for the eyes. Just for the eyes, mind you. Don't slosh that stuff all over because it will dissolve parts of you and the insect. It's not good stuff to have on you. Hope that answered your question, Ray. If you can remember the question from last week, put it in real quick. Well, we're already out of time. Doesn't matter. Put the question in and I'll answer it if I still can. Okay, let me see. Another question. Ralph Watson. Why is there a focus on magnification? Does it matter what the magnification is as long as the image is what I want? Ralph, that is a really good question. No, it doesn't matter. But you are oftentimes going to be asked when you present a photograph of an unfamiliar creature, how big is it? How magnified is this image? It gives a frame of reference for unusual things that you're photographing, for one thing. The second thing is it's good to know approximately what magnification you're getting from each of your lenses. So I know that my enlarger lens, the EL Nikkor, when I have it on my bellows, that when I have it at 1:1, that my magnification will be when the extension is this far, or this far. At 200 millimeters extension, it's 4.5x. Knowing that will help me select the right lens for the subject. I'll look at the subject and I'll say 2 millimeters. Okay, at 10x that will be too big, really. It'll fill my entire crop sensor camera, right? 10x, 2 millimeters, 20 millimeters, and I have a 24 millimeter sensor. I want it a bit smaller than that. So I'd go with a different magnification. And if you don't know what your magnifications are, you won't be able to pick the right lens without trial and error. So that's the only reason that it's important. And then there are people who just absolutely are into the numbers and like that kind of thing, which is great. So where were we? So that's Phil. A tilt shift lens on your production camera will stop the bookshelf. Yeah, it will. But my production camera is a MacBook Pro that even for the $4,000 did not come with a tilt shift lens on the camera. What I have to do is I have to raise the computer up on a book and then do that with the screen, which would have you looking at my tummy if I just did it like that now. So I'm with you, and if I was using a separate camera, I would put my tilt shift adapter on there. In fact, I've got a tilt shift macro lens I could use, but for right now, the bookshelf is falling over. You get that? You understand that I can't do that, but I would. So let me see. I think we just got a couple of other questions. Paul asks, is the Raynox DCR 250 viable with the Mitutoyo Plan 10x? Yeah, it would, and the magnification is right at 6x. And it is the sharpest 6x you will ever see. It is impressive, yes. That all of the M plans will do this, will give you this effect. And it's, yeah, it's right at 6x. Maybe that's what Bud was asking about when he was asking about the 20. Maybe that was a typo and he meant 10x. Okay, so let me see. A late hello from Newcastle, Angie Wallace. Welcome, Angie. Glad you made it. And yeah, well, I'm talking late because because I want to answer all the questions. So that's good. And you should just kick your visitors out. Are they nicer than me? Well, if they are, then I suppose you can keep them in. But otherwise, just boot them out. So you've got a date on Thursday. That's what I'd do. It's why I don't have any friends. All right, Photographer 85 has a question. Sorry, the magnification comment was meant for something else. Oh, no problem. I mean, you ask the questions. You're asking about the yeah. About the extension. Yeah, no problem. Yeah, it's good. It's good to get all of these questions out because they uncover facts that I otherwise might not think to mention. Did I use the Decon 90? But oh, you did use the Decon 90, but it didn't help. If you use Decon 90 on a bug's eyes that are so far gone that it doesn't help, there's nothing that is going to help, really. The most important part of preparing a bug's eyes is what you do when you catch the bug and kill the bug and put it in preservative. If the bug was out too long and the eyes decomposed and the internal structure was lost, there's nothing you can do to bring that back. So maybe that's where you need to look to get that figured out. All right, Bill. Oh, I was showing the wrong thing. Okay, that was Bill telling me why I had to use the other camera. Yeah, I didn't get that in real time, Bill. I'd already moved on to that, and I do that all the time. It's that'll stop happening when I get these other monitors up, because I'll be able to see I've got the wrong camera, and there you go. It'll be brilliant. Have you ever washed a moth or a butterfly? Yeah. You've seen someone clean them in acetone, and that seemed to work well, but alcohol seems to ruin the coloration. Alcohol also just rips all of the scales out of the wings. I use acetone, well, very, very rarely in moths and butterflies. I tell you, 99% of the time, moths and butterflies I dry clean with brushes. I use wide, seeing as most of my butterflies are fairly decent sized, I use very soft, flat brushes. I don't know what artists use them for, but they're if you were putting a wash on the sky or something, flat, soft, and I use those and just gently brush with the scales on the body and on the wings. Most of the time, treat it like you were cleaning a sensor. And it's a good idea sometimes to charge the brush, and a lot of the stuff will just jump onto the brush. Don't wet it. Don't wet it with anything, even acetone, if you can avoid it. The acetone is going to flush the colors out worse than alcohol, I think. Yeah, I don't wet them. Don't wet bees either if you can help it, because the hairs get matted. Bees get covered in wax, and there are things you can do to get rid of the wax that we'll talk about another time. But butterflies are just a different. The beauty of the butterfly is in the chemistry of the wing and the scales and how the light is spread as it passes through the scales. If you wet it, it just changes everything and it makes a real mess of it. Don't do that. Don't do that. All right. I think we're down at the bottom. That was the washing of the butterfly. Okay, and then Tom has heard of people trying to get decon or other surfactant into the mouth parts and eventually re-moisten the internal eye components that way. Well, Tom, I'll tell you what, anybody who's doing that either has a very expensive, rare bug that they'll stop at nothing to fix, or they just have too much time on their hands, really. The only time I use decon internally is if I have a beetle that is absolutely rigid, solid, rigor mortis, and I can't move his legs and I know I'm going to break them off. I will take about 5%, 2.5 to 5% Decon 90 solution, and I will inject it into the thorax so that the inner cavity will be full of it, and it starts dissolving everything in there, including the muscles that hold the legs. Sometimes the legs will fall off, so yeah, I wouldn't do it in the eyes, but then again, you know, it's if it works, it works, and you do it, and if it works on your eyes, I'll try it. Not your eyes, your bug's eyes. Okay, I think we're just about out of time. What do I use acetone for, and why? Acetone is effective for, well, the waxy buildup that you get on bees. That will, sometimes that wax won't go away with any normal soaps. Acetone will dissolve it. Also, gosh, what is the other reason I use? I can't remember. I kill with acetone sometimes. There's one other thing. I can't remember what it is. I'll let you know. I'll look it up, and on my sheet that I gave to you, there's a category for acetone. I don't know where I put it. I'll try to find it and send you another one. All right. Would you rather fight one horse-sized duck or 100 duck-sized horses? Definitely 100 duck-sized horses I would prefer to fight. I don't think I'd want to fight either, but I mean, one duck the size of a horse would get me with its bill. I have been got with a normal-sized duck's bill, and I didn't like that at all. So yeah, that's what I'd do. Jim, you sneaked in, and now you're off again. Well, goodbye. Have a good rest of the week. Guys, we're out of time, but I think we did well. I think we covered pretty much everything and only went over 15 minutes. Oh, hang on, there's another question. When you shoot stacks, do you ever have issues with antenna or hair moving between the shots? Absolutely, yes. Yes. Everything moves, and as it dries, it moves. If you have changed the bug from wet to dry, in other words, you've dried it to take its picture, its antennas and its appendages are going to dry, and they'll move as they dry. The trick is leave them long enough to stop moving, or don't get those parts wet. And the one thing you cannot do is just try to keep wetting it. That just prolongs the problem. Give it time everything will come to a steady state after a while. The weight of the antenna will hold it from going all the way upright, and then as it dries, it'll stay there. But yeah, unless you're racing the clock and getting ready to lose the shot because an eye is going to collapse with a mosquito, say, then you have no choice. But if you have the luxury of time, give it long enough. 10 minutes is all in the studio, just for everything to stop moving. It will eventually. And yes, everything moves. when you shoot. The trick is to, you know, minimize the damage to the picture. And would I rather fight one horse-sized fly or one fly-sized horse, or 100 horseflies? Rather fight one fly-sized horse. Is this a trick question? Because that one, I just swat that. I've never swatted a horse, but I would if it was that size. You guys are asking me difficult questions I can't answer. David's leaving. Susan says acetone's not on the list. Well, it will be, Susan. It will be. I'll add it to the list. That's an oversight. Maybe I've got another list. All right, Carlos, I'll be talking to you in just a minute. And all right, last question. Photographer 85. Well, it's already 100% dry. You think you have air currents or something? Yes, you do. No, the flash isn't causing it. No. Are you using continuous light at all? That could do it. A breeze could do it. And if it's 100% dry, it could be poltergeists. Do you have a big problem with, is your home on an Indian burial mound? These are important questions to answer, because if that's the case, it's a possession, and acetone won't do anything. There you go. Guys, thanks very much. Tom's got to go back to work, which means I'm done. Susan, thank you. Walter, thank you. Harapuzzo, welcome from Canada. Oh, you're new to macro. Excellent. Well, I have a Fuji. Is it an X Pro 2? No, I have a Fuji. Oh, I've forgotten what it's called. It's a 2, whatever it is. And you're thinking of getting the Leica 65 or the new full frame 30. Can I advise? I can't actually. You're talking about. You've caught us right at the very tail end of this, and I am going to have to stop now. But I'll tell you what, that is such a good question, and it has a complicated answer. I am going to answer that. Come back next week, same time, except you're an hour late, so it will be an hour earlier from whatever time you came at 2 o'clock Central Time in America next Thursday. I will answer your question first. I will answer the question, Leica 65 or the new 30mm, and I'll tell you absolutely which is the best one. So show up next week. Deal? Deal. All right, Lee, good night. All righty. Yeah, okay, I got the rest of your question, Hara, so we're all set. I will answer that next week. I got to go. Fun as always, guys. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Take care. I'll see you in a week. Oh, or come on Saturday if you're a Patreoner. If you're not a Patreoner, go to Patreon, www.patreon.com/Allan Walls Photography. Take you to my page, and you can join us on Saturday. Otherwise, yeah, I'll just tell you about it. See you on Tuesday or Wednesday or when the video comes out. Whatever. Adios. Later.